and Secretary of Transport, Works and Water Resources, Barbados. The Honorable Spencer Brand, Minister of Labor, Public Works, Physical Planning, Post and the Environment, Nevis Island Administration. Other honorable ministers present from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago: Dr. Senator Mohammed Yunus Ibrahim, Vice President of the Senate; Ms. Nicolette Duke, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Utilities, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago; Permanent Secretaries from other ministries: Mr. Ravindra Nanga, Chairman, Water and Sewerage Authority of Trinidad and Tobago; Mr. Bambos Charalambas, Member of IWA Strategic Council; Mr. Marlon Daniels, President, Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association; Dr. Arlene Leng, Coordinating Director of the Caribbean Meteorological Organization. Specially invited speakers and panelists, our valued sponsors, exhibitors, delegates, members of the media, our viewing public at home. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome. I also want to acknowledge Baba Neil and of course Emmanuel Joseph for their opening pieces, the prayer and the national anthem of Trinidad and Tobago on our national instrument. Now, this is the opening ceremony of the Caribbean Water Loss Conference 2023. This is the first of its kind in the region, and Trinidad and Tobago has the honor and privilege to be the host of this prestigious event right here at Trinidad Hilton and Conference Center. I know the minister and the team would have put in so much work to be here today, so please give the team a round of applause for where we are today. This conference has brought together subject matter experts, industry leaders, technocrats, and policymakers in the water and wastewater sector from the region and further afield to examine and explore over the next 2 days best practices and new technologies in water loss management under the theme Combating Climate Change Through Non-Revenue Water Reduction. It is significant that as we open this historic conference here in Port of Spain this morning, Trinidad and Tobago joins the rest of the global community in the international observance of World Water Day. The World Water Day theme is about accelerating change to solve the water and sanitation crisis. And because, well, water affects us all, we all need to take action. So as it's World Water Day, I want you to look to the person next to you and say, Happy World Water Day. So, as we look into the conference some more, tomorrow, Thursday 23rd, Trinidad and Tobago will also be joining the international community in the global observance of World Meteorological Day under the theme, The Future of Weather, Climate and Water Across Generations. So it's evident, ladies and gentlemen, that there's a common thread to all these themes and focus areas, making our activity here in Port of Spain over the next 2 days truly historic and relevant in the regional and global context, particularly when we take into account Sustainable Development Goal 6, clean water and sanitation. In this vein, I welcome you once again to the first Caribbean Regional Water Loss Conference. Please give ourselves a round of applause because we are here today. The conversations, the policies, the things that happen over the next 2 days will indeed shape our future, and future generations will thank us for what will happen here in Trinidad and Tobago at this conference. So just for everyone's knowledge, before we get into the actual speeches and so on, we have an open Wi-Fi here today for each and every one of you all. Just log into the Water Loss Conference Network. It's open. And we also have an all-day coffee break station. So if at any point in time you feel the need for refreshments, coffee, tea, juice, etc., please feel free to go to the station. All right? It is now my pleasure to introduce our first speaker delivering welcome remarks. Please welcome the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Utilities, Ms. Nicolette Duke. Let's welcome her.
The Honorable Marvin Gonzalez, Minister of Public Utilities, Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. The Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister. The Honorable Melford Nicholas, Minister of Information, Communications Technology, Utilities and Energy, Antigua. The Honorable Alfred Sears, Minister of Works and Transport, Bahamas. The Honorable Dr. Romel Springer, Parliamentary Secretary of Transport, Works and Water Resources, Barbados. The Honorable Spencer Brand, Minister of Labor, Public Works, Physical Planning, Posts, and the Environment, Nevis Island Administration. Other honorable ministers present from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago: Dr. Senator Mohammed Yunus Ibrahim, Vice President of the Senate, permanent secretaries from other ministries: Mr. Ravindra Nanga, Chairman, Water and Sewerage Authority; Mr. Bambos Charalambos, member of the International Water Association Strategic Council; Mr. Marlon Daniels, President of the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association; Dr. Arlene Lang, Coordinating Director of the Caribbean Meteorological Association, specially invited guests, speakers, panelists, or valued sponsors, exhibitors, delegates, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome you to the Caribbean Regional Water Laws Conference 2023. This is the first gathering of its kind in the region, and we at the Ministry of Public Utilities are happy to be able to host such an event along with our partners, the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association, the International Water Association, and of course, the Water and Sewerage Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. I would especially like to welcome all our visitors to our beautiful Twin Island Republic. The next 2 days will be packed with discussions, presentations, and workshops, but I do hope that you will somehow find the time to enjoy some of what we have to offer, and that your stay here will be both refreshing and productive. The journey to this point has not been without challenges, but like most journeys, the doing has led to our becoming. We have discovered and nurtured new capacities. We have forged and strengthened relationships and associations. And today we are about to launch ourselves into 2 days of sharing and discussion that will benefit not just the water and wastewater sector in Trinidad and Tobago, but those of all the countries represented here, as well as the many stakeholders who support those sectors in various ways. Water loss, or non-revenue water, has plagued our local sector for decades, undermining revenue generation, as well as the stability and reliability of the water supply to the general population. We are aware that we are not alone in this regard. Countries around the world have had to grapple with this phenomenon, some with more success than others. If the issue of non-revenue water is so common to many of us, it should be no surprise that the interventions and strategies aimed at its mitigation can also be shared, developed, and in some cases implemented in a spirit of collaboration. That idea of coming together to find and share solutions to a common challenge is at the foundation of this conference. Indeed, coming together to facilitate much-needed change seems to be a prevalent idea in these times. As you would be aware, it is World Water Day, as we've heard, and I would especially want to echo this year's theme: accelerating the change to solve the water and sanitation crisis. That also could easily have been the theme of this conference, since it speaks directly to our primary purpose for being here. In many ways, the mitigation of water loss is a critical component of accelerative positive change in the water sector, and coming together to find practical, innovative, and sustainable ways of reducing non-revenue water is in essence necessary to move us towards saving this most precious resource. And so I thank you all for being here. We have a packed program, as I said before, and these will address many aspects of water loss mitigation. I have no doubt that you will find these discussions and presentations insightful and useful. And so I would like to leave you with a well-known saying, which I think is quite impactful in this context. Individually, we are but a drop, but together, we are an ocean. It is my hope that we will all leave here with a renewed sense of urgency and an understanding of our collective capacity for creating the change that we want to see in our respective water sectors and in the world at large. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Do have a productive and enjoyable conference.
Thank you very much, Ms. Duke. I love the fact that you put in that little quote of individually one drop, together we are an ocean, and it's so true. Together we can make a difference. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to introduce our Honorable Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, an elected Member of Parliament for the constituency of Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, to deliver the opening address. Please put your hands together for the Honorable Stuart Young.
Good morning. And on behalf of our hosts here this morning, the Honorable Marvin Gonzalez, our Minister of Public Utilities, my cabinet colleagues who are present, our CARICOM ministers and other government representatives who are present, our members of parliament, as well as all of you, our specially invited guests, members of the media, I would like to welcome you all here to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and as my parliamentary colleague who's hosting us, Minister Gonzalez, told me, to my constituency. And I'd also like to welcome our Mayor of Port of Spain, who has just joined us, Alderman Joel Martinez. Ladies and gentlemen, what you all have gathered here today in Port of Spain to do is of the utmost importance. The utmost importance to all of the people that we represent in one way or the other. As the Minister of Energy, I've spent the last year plus traveling the globe engaging with global energy players, including governments all over, as we deal with something called energy security and the importance of energy security in daily lives. Just look around the room, the turning on of electricity is one example of that. Tied very closely to energy security is food security. And one of the most important parts of that equation in the day-to-day living is access to clean water and the getting rid of waste. And that is often underlooked and not given the attention it deserves. You are gathered here in this room today as a body of regional and outside of the region experts to address exactly that. And it dawned on me as I was listening to our young people, I claim the pan player from my constituency, from St. Margaret's pan side, as well as Renegades. Give him a round of applause. I also claim your MC, Hans, who started his career working with me many moons ago with a different hat on. As I look at young people, I'd like to challenge all of you all in this room, especially the young ones amongst you, to take what you're about to do in the next couple of days very, very seriously. Because water security is critical to everyone's daily life. And what the permanent secretary said, coming to the end of her remarks a short while ago, about that one drop in the ocean, I tie it to a challenge that I've been having as I speak at energy conferences around the world. I've been speaking to our CARICOM comrades. The sooner we join together in tackling the problems, is the sooner we have a loud voice that will be listened to seriously throughout the rest of the world. And that is no different to what you are doing here today. In that conversation, at that level, I've also invited Latin America and our brothers and sisters in Africa to join us. Because you see, we are often overlooked by the wealthy, developed countries of the world. And when you look at the getting water to everybody, it is no different. Again, I heard the permanent secretary and my colleague, Minister Gonzalez, will address, as you will, the loss, what you call it, non-revenue water. In other words, the leaks and the water that is lost or stolen. We have similar issues in Trinidad and Tobago, not with stealing, thankfully, but with leaks, potential leaks in the energy sector, in our oil and gas. Fortunately, in the gas sector in particular, we have a very robust system through our national gas company, because of course a leak could lead to massive disaster. But the leaks that take place on a daily basis in our integrated water system are a similar disaster, because it means that people aren't getting water, especially in this constituency. When you look outside and hopefully enjoy a bit of it, you'll see it's a very hilly constituency. So the water doesn't get up because the pressure doesn't build to the higher areas. And I have to constantly be bombarding my colleague, Minister Gonzalez, and I thank him publicly for his help in assisting my constituents. So what I'm challenging you all here today, if I may be so bold to do, is to put your collective heads together. And our brothers and sisters from the region, let's band together. As I was speaking to two fellow ministers a short while ago on the renewable energy scape and the bankability, if we put our heads collectively together and we share the experiences, and then we look into economies of scale in how you all address the water issue problems in our respective territories, I guarantee you we will have a louder voice and we'll be more successful in what we do. At a local level, I can tell you that I have mandated that our energy sector companies, in particular the National Gas Company, work along with the Water and Sewerage Authority of Trinidad and Tobago in using technology to identify leaks and to map out the pipelines at WASA. And that is undergoing, because that's what the president of NGC told me a few days ago when we were in another country. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is great to see so many of you all gathered here in Trinidad and Tobago. At the outset, I should have welcomed you as well on behalf of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Rowley, out of the Office of the Prime Minister. I do hope that your stay here is not only a pleasurable one, we have much to offer, but a fruitful one. And I always wonder with these conferences, as we gather and we spend a bit of time together and we exchange great ideas and have excellent conversation, what happens next? And that is the challenge, that we don't only go off in our separate directions and start to live our own lives all over again. Because collectively, I guarantee you, you will have a better shot at solving and fixing the aging infrastructure that is taking place, the loss of water, the provision of more water to our people in our respective countries. Minister Gonzalez, well done. He is one of our brightest and our best, and he is doing an excellent job at the Ministry of Public Utilities, and I commend him for that, and I ask that you all give him and his team a round of applause for today. So in closing, welcome to Trinidad and Tobago. I wish you a successful conference. I look forward to listening to some of the discussion and discourse during the course of this morning. And we have a song in Trinidad and Tobago that goes, drink water and mind your business. The business that you all are minding here today, and not mining, is all about the provision of water to our citizens in our respective countries in an efficient manner. Good luck, well done, and I wish you all of the best. Thank you.
Drink water and mind your business. Not mind, mine it. Grow it, build it, help it become better, greater. Ladies and gentlemen, please once again give the Honorable Minister Stuart Young a round of applause. Minister Young spoke a lot to working together, partnerships. We'd now like to welcome one of our partners of today's conference. Please welcome Mr. Marlon Daniels, President of the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association. Please put your hands together for Mr. Daniels.
Very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. I am Marlon Daniels, President of the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association. And I do stand on the protocols that have been established earlier, but I really must acknowledge Minister Marvin Gonzalez, who I met a few months ago. I'm very inspired by his youth and his vibrancy and so on. I also do bring you greetings from Minister Crowell, or the Minister of Housing and Water from Guyana, who could not be here as he's on assignment at the UN. And he sends his greetings also. I will join in welcoming you to this conference on behalf of the Ministry of Public Utilities, on behalf of WASA, the IWA, and CWB. I know this is the first conference, but I am certain it will not be the last. We at the CWB, together with our partners, I will mention the IDB and CDB, our traditional sponsors, our exhibitors, our technical presenters, have always supported and provided a platform for serious discussions on water loss, and in particular on NRW, whether through discussions at our annual high-level forum for ministers of water, or through technical presentations and exhibitor demonstrations at our annual conference. It was therefore a very easy decision for us to partner with the organizers of this very important conference. Of course, the obvious is not lost on us. Today is World Water Day. As cliched as it may sound, I must remind you that water is, without a doubt, the most valuable resource to us, and we can't survive without it. There are naturally occurring disparities in the distribution of water globally, resulting in deficits in many parts of the world. These deficits may be exacerbated by the impacts of climate change. Added to this is the increasing demand for water resources for domestic, agricultural, and industrial uses. These are all natural and to some extent conditions that are beyond our immediate control. One element which increases the pressure on a resource is water loss. So of course the overwhelming presence and interest in this conference is testimony to that, to the impact of this threat. I'm told that initially we had targeted about 200 participants. I'm happy to say that we have about 350, over 350 participants. As we can see in the room, it's swollen to capacity, perhaps beyond capacity. And this reminds me of when we were in the Bahamas, our first conference post-COVID, overwhelming support. So I think, Minister Gonzalez, what we have here today is really testimony to how important your work is and how important the sector is to all of us. Globally, water loss has been estimated to be about 49 billion cubic meters, which is enough to supply about 90 million people. In the Caribbean, an IDB report noted that NRW ranges from 40% to as high as 75%. And these figures are staggering. I would not get into the specifics of my utility. That will come out in another presentation later on. But really, these figures across the Caribbean are very staggering. This speaks to the debilitating impacts of NRW. Seated in our midst, I know, are several chief executives. My CEO is also here, and other senior managers of our regional utilities. I therefore urge you to participate fully in these deliberations so that together we can work to solve the NRW crisis in the Caribbean. Again, I'll wear my local hat as a Guyanese and say proudly that we are fielding a team of 8 participants to this conference. These staggering figures make the theme for this year's World Water Day observation even more timely, accelerating change to solve the water and sanitation crisis. I believe that this conference serves as an ignition within the Caribbean to accelerate the way we look at and address water loss, also in highlighting solutions that have worked across the world, identifying those that are most applicable to us, and by implementing these solutions to aid in minimizing our water loss. So I'll pause and give you a very quick story. I am a PhD student, candidate, in water loss, in apparent water losses. And as part of that process, you do your research, you read thousands of articles. Interestingly, I've read articles from Bambos, from Paul Fano, from Stewart, and it's so surreal that now we are sitting at the same table as colleagues. So really and truly bringing the solutions from other parts of the world and having it applicable to the Caribbean, I think is very profound. To keep this momentum going in the Caribbean, the theme for this year's CWWA Annual Conference and Exhibition, which will be held in Guyana from the 23rd to the 27th of October, is accelerating change in the water, wastewater, and solid waste sectors. As with this conference, we know that this year's conference will bring us together to discuss challenges and solutions that can drive the change within the Caribbean as it relates to these sectors. But even though I speak to you as CWA President, I cannot forget from whence I came. So in this regard, I've been a member of staff of the Guyana Water Incorporated for over 15 years, serving in several positions, and I now serve as Director of Projects. So it is therefore with immense pride that I tell you of the tremendous investments that the government of Guyana is making in the sector. And we've designed a coastal water infrastructure program which seeks to increase our treated water coverage to about 90%. I think this is our commitment, our leadership to accelerating change in the region. And the key word here is change. The total value of that program, and the several components, the component is funded entirely by the government of Guyana, is $140 million US. We are expecting another $60 million US from the CDB to fund another component, another $30 million that is funded by another agency. Of that figure so far, we've already invested $40 million US in NRW reduction. And our annual budget, outside of all of that, our annual budget, this program runs to 2025. Our annual budget in the water sector for improvements in transmission, distribution, and NRW via metering and so on is about $40 million US. So I think this speaks volumes of where we are as a region, and in particular where Guyana intends to go as a country in fighting this problem, which is NRW. Ladies and gentlemen, as I make way for the continuation of this program, again, please permit me to pause to congratulate our host minister, the young and, I will say, youthful Minister of Public Utilities of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Marvin Gonzalez. Congratulations are in order, sir, for your leadership and steadfastness in hosting such a conference in the Caribbean. I will take the liberty of saying that we were happy to be the inspiration for Minister Gonzalez in the Bahamas, who after that very sterling conference hosted by Minister Sears, I think Minister Gonzalez was inspired to put on his own show here in Trinidad. So we, the CWA, we like to be leaders, and I think we've done well in inspiring our ministers via our HLF, our High-Level Forum for Ministers, in really galvanizing support and so on for the sector. And of course, Minister, I will say publicly, I'll put you on the spot here, that I intend to do everything in my power to ensure that the third conference is held right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, the second conference is being held in Guyana. So next year, I hope that we can convince your cabinet to host us. Again, CWA leads. Thank you very much. I really do wish all of us a very happy and successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniels, and we do look forward to calling you doctor by the time we have the third conference. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to invite you to turn your attention to the screen for a video presentation on the North Oropouche Tucker Valley project. Please, your attention to the screen.
Understanding the global importance of fresh water and its limited supply in today's world, where climate change is a real phenomenon, non-revenue water management is the first step the authority is taking to optimize the water being produced by the North Oropouche water treatment plant as it attempts to meet the existing and growing demand for its customers. To this end, the first smart water network in Trinidad and Tobago is being established on the North Oropouche water supply zone by a team of dedicated persons from the Water and Sewage Authority. The team aims to automate and digitize the production and distribution of this system.
North Oropouche, which is our second largest water production facility, though producing that volume of water, the water was not actually reaching the areas on its extremities. So, for example, Five Rivers, coal mines, Coreal, Manzanilla. So in our attempt to better serve the population, we put together a small team of engineers and other special purpose practitioners to develop and assess the network towards producing a better supply to the community.
The North Oropouche plant was built and commissioned in the early 1980s. And at present, the current capacity at the plant is 20 million gallons per day. There are limitations on the production at the facility, which varies in extreme dry conditions as well as when there's extreme rainy weather conditions.
The potable water being produced by the North Oropouche water treatment facility would exit the facility or be discharged by the facility via a 42-inch pipeline. This pipeline has approximately 13 or 14 offtakes, and there's no actual management of this water through the offtake. So basically, we have a first come, first serve. The offtakes closest to the plant would receive the highest pressures, the highest volumes, despite their actual need. We noted that proper management of the potable water along the distribution network had to be implemented.
After this upgrade, the plant will be continuing to produce 20 million gallons, but instead using 4 water pumps. We will now have that extra space, one pump, to become a standby so that in the event we have failure, we can easily switch over.
So what has been done differently with the North Oropouche supply zone is an end-to-end approach in terms of the automation. No longer are we just looking at automating individual facilities and boosters. We're also looking at automating the valves of the offtakes, which allow now pressure management to be done from the input at an offtake throughout the critical points located at the what one would call the worst case hydraulic nodes within the distribution system. Nodes that actually allow the authority to estimate how well customers are being serviced within that particular distribution or pressure management zone.
The assessment started with gathering data because we intended to solve the issues from a very data-driven standpoint. So we gathered data from an infrastructural standpoint, that is the civil, mechanical, electrical components, as well as the automation component. So we would have assessed the efficiency of all of the pumps on the plant itself, as well as the associated booster stations, the electrical as well as the mechanical. We also looked at the civil aspect of the raw water intake and the plant itself for their level of efficiency.
The concept of creating a smart water network is to improve the ultimate service to customers, improve their service and reliability.
And this will be done through the installation and implementation of not only flow meters as well as pressure loggers on each of the offtakes. We intend to also install smart PRVs, which regulate both the pressure and the volume of water as needed through each of the offtakes.
Automation, therefore, is the foundation on which a smart water network is built. It's not the only component, but it is the foundational requirement to have a smart water network. So typically, SCADA would look at facilities, but as we talk smart water network, the operative word being network, it speaks to a wider penetration, the creation of a digital nervous system throughout our network. And mass distributional sensors will play an integral role in establishing this, and the first would have been the data logger. So the data logger basically is a simple device that measures either pressure or flow. It could do other parameters, but that typically is the two parameters that we use it to measure. And it will measure this in real time and transmit it telemetrically back to our central data store. The control system therefore has access to that information, and based on how it is programmed or algorithms that exist in terms of best practice for service deliveries, decisions can now be made on to what sort of pressures are required to give customers a better supply.
The gathering and capturing of telemetry data across the country is just half the process of actually utilizing the data. The other half would be displaying and visualizing of network across geographic lanes. The multiple ways in which data is going to be presented will be done using the ArcGIS environment across the authority. Dashboards will be generated to allow managers and decision makers real-time information so that they can make more educated and informed decisions. With the data being captured, we'll be actually be able to draw a real picture as to what is going on the plants. With this data, we'll be able to see where pressures drop off or flows increase, which will allow to alert managers in regards to issues that need to be addressed.
That data would allow better decisions to be made as to what is required to actually transition customers to a 24/7 supply.
With the establishment of our Operation Control Center, we'll have 24-hour monitoring taking place. With this real-time data, we'll actually be able to perform the duties of responding to customer issues regarding no water, low pressures, faster at a real-time pace. Visually understanding what is going on at our facilities, being able to quickly identify leaks, quickly identify anomalies on our system and address them on a 24-hour basis.
So together with the increase in the infrastructural work or the refurbishment of the various plants and facilities, we also intend to increase the level of automation both at the plant as well as along the distribution, transmission, trunk main.
We would move therefore from the source of our product, which would be the water treatment plants. We'll look at the transmission and distribution systems, and of course the facilities along the way such as boosters and wells, and we'll also look at valves and how we route water to customers. That allows us to do pressure management. And pressure management and the control and delivery of not just water, but the service factor, which has to do with the pressures that they deliver at and the schedules being met. That ability to optimize that delivery with those parameters is what comprises a smart water network.
With the capture of data, we will not only have data for one specific plant, but nationwide, both Trinidad and Tobago, allowing us to constantly monitor in real time all our plants and all our facilities. We'll be able to actually accomplish real-time job management of our employees. So, for example, reports in regards to leaks, in regards to no service, all these things will be actually populated on our dashboard immediately from our employees, so we know areas that we have to investigate.
Just the ability to be able to have pressure management being performed. The first benefit would be that the available water would now be directed to those who need it most. And we will no longer have the case of high pressures going to areas that don't need it and other areas along the system suffering from low pressures. Basically, with demand studies and pressure management, customers will get exactly the service that they are able to get based on the available supply. And definitely, we should see more equitable sharing of the existing production capacity.
The Tucker Valley Supply Zone, also earmarked for automation, is unique in that the raw water supply and production capacity of the Tucker Valley Treatment Facility exceeds the collective demand of domestic and non-domestic customers. This means that with the implementation of non-revenue water management principles, continued operational good practices, and robust preventative maintenance, the entire zone has not only the potential to supply its customers with water 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but it can also actually export some of this water to neighboring zones to supplement their existing supply. This outcome of supplying a 24/7 level of service will be achieved by aggressively repairing all leaks within the zone, implementing pressure management principles, optimizing the distribution of water within the zone, and increasing the ability to monitor and control the operations through full automation.
The leak management process, which is something that we'll be working on, is actually going to allow us to not only know where a leak is, but do things like spatial analysis to identify where we have weak points in mains, along a main line, or even in areas that need to actually be paid attention to. SCADA
itself is supervisory control and data acquisition. It really describes the components of hardware and software that work together to allow remote control and automation of facilities related to water treatment, production, distribution, and monitoring and control. Without SCADA, we wouldn't be able to manage facilities as distributed as we have presently.
The advantage of a GIS dashboard is that we'll no longer need the input of a customer to know when we have a problem. With the drop-in pressures being shown and being alerted immediately, we would then know that more than likely there's a break on a line, so we can have these repairs done speedily and effectively so that the customer experiences the lowest latency possible in regards to getting a service re-established.
The added benefits in expanding SCADA throughout the country would be to be able to get efficiencies of scale, to be able to have staff work more smartly, to be able to know precisely where inputs to the organization go, how they're used, and how their resources could be maximized in terms of achieving customer satisfaction.
Once we improve the actual management of the water that is being distributed along the transmission main, each area or each community being served by this water treatment plant will in fact receive the needed pressures and volumes based on the demand. That is the population, the various types of industry, be it commerce, be it agricultural, etc. It will no longer be a first-come, first-served basis. It will be what you need as you need it. And that means we will have the water and the pressures at the extremity. So Five Rivers will no longer have a problem. Coal mine, North Manzanilla. We are here at WASA to improve our service to our customers. And we are doing this through the implementation, the establishment of a smart water network. WASA, a smart authority.
Trinidad and Tobago, get excited as we expand this digital transformation to your community. Soon, inconsistent water supply will be a thing of the past. Real-time monitoring of our system 24 hours a day will greatly improve our response time and service to you, our valued customers. WASA, being digitally transformed into a smart utility.
Ladies and gentlemen, we definitely look forward to the improved outputs and the results of all these initiatives shown in front of us today. At this time, we will be treated to a musical interlude. He did the national anthem first, but now he's going to give us some entertainment. Please put your hand together for Mr. Emmanuel Joseph. Thank you very much. Let's hear it once again for Emmanuel Joseph. As Minister Young mentioned, a member of the Panorama winning band, BP Renegades. Oh gosh, boy, the tension when it comes to talking about Pan in Trinidad and Tobago, if you only understand. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to bring to the stage to deliver this morning's feature address a man that has stood up to the plate. And you know, when it comes to water, pressure is important, and he stands to the pressure. Please put your hands together for the Minister of Public Utilities of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Marvin Gonzalez.
Let me recognize my parliamentary and cabinet colleagues of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, my ministerial colleagues from the region, from Bahamas, Barbados, Nevis, Antigua, and we have also representatives from Guyana, through your president, members of the Senate, our vice president. Thank you very much, and I truly honor your visit to this esteemed conference. Delegates from the region and from around the world, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our sponsors and members of the media. Good morning. As a young boy growing up in the hills of Paramin, perhaps 20 minutes away from Port of Spain, I'd always dreamt of visiting every Caribbean island and seeing the wider world, of being able to interface with as many cultures from as many continents as I would have ever imagined. While I have not yet been able to literally accomplish that dream, the Caribbean and the wider world has come to me as I see representatives from my beloved islands in the Caribbean, our guest speakers from the wider diaspora. On behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, I offer my warmest welcome to all of you. And while it is indeed a pity that this conference could not have been organized to coincide with our annual Carnival celebrations, I fear that we might not have been able to get any work done during that period. I also extend an invitation to you, therefore, to return next year for the Carnival celebrations of the greatest show on earth. I know one person who would not have been affected by the Carnival celebration is my cabinet colleague, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for the constituency in which we currently are located. Minister Young has been unwavering in his support for our work at the ministry, and I thank him immensely for being able to share some of his time and thoughts with us today. Minister Young, I am truly grateful, as well as to all my cabinet colleagues who would have taken the time to come out and offer their support. Ladies and gentlemen, while this inaugural Caribbean Regional Water Loss Conference is a significant event for us in the region, I wish to commend all those who have contributed to its success. Our array of presenters represent a wide cross-section of both countries and competencies, experience and expertise in their particular fields. I am more than convinced that their scholastic prowess would challenge us to even higher heights as we navigate these very difficult times. The conference is especially important for us here in Trinidad and Tobago as we currently engage in a massive transformation of our own water and wastewater sector. It is a transformation that has been through several iterations over the past years and successive governments, but this government, led by Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, has bitten the proverbial bullet and is moving with both precision and purpose to ensure its successful completion. We remain more than convinced that the time for this transformation is more than appropriate, as to delay this any further would be to continue to visit on our population the myth that save and apart from fixing leaks, all is well with our water sector. And if you want, you can take a look at today's headlines in the Newsday, in the Guardian, and the Express to get an idea of what I'm referring to. Ladies and gentlemen, water loss in the water distribution system is a challenge to many authorities around the world. But the problem is even more crucial in less developed countries. The effect of water losses include a reduction of much needed revenue and availability of water, interruption in the quality of water, and inflation in the operation and maintenance costs of the water authority. Moreover, as with every situation of supply and demand, the effects of the global water crisis fall disproportionately upon vulnerable or marginalized groups, including women, indigenous peoples, minority groups, refugees, persons with disabilities, older persons, and people living in poverty. This is further compounded by factors such as age, gender, poverty, disabilities, and cultural or ethnic background. There can be no doubt that despite the planet being covered primarily by water, water shortage is a growing global problem and getting worse due to the effects of climate change. Water demand is anticipated to grow significantly throughout the period 2010 to 2050 in the industrial sector and domestic use in Africa, in Asia, in Central and South America due to population growth, industrialization policies, and expansion of water distribution services in urban areas. It is a situation that has forced the water authorities to protect the water sources and utilize the water more creatively. Those surrounded by water ourselves, the islands of the Caribbean have had to vigorously contend with the effects of the water crisis, whether it is purely a matter of scarcity or loss, and to continue to do so valiantly. In 2021, an article by Joel Fraser notes that Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Kitts and Nevis are all classed as water scarce, which the United Nations defined as countries with less than 1,000 cubic meters per capita of renewable water resources a year. In Barbados, situation with only 350 cubic meters per capita is also a grave concern. The picture is similar in Jamaica, which suffers from a serious loss of water that has been produced and is supposed to be delivered, but it is not reaching the end user because of aging infrastructure. What is abundantly clear is that if these structural problems are left unaddressed, things are only likely to deteriorate as the planet heats up. Adrian Cashman, who sits at the Global Technical Advisory Committee for the Global Water Partnership, has stated quite emphatically that, and I quote, "There are many other problems that are facing the water sector in the Caribbean, and climate change is exacerbating those existing underlying conditions," end quote. Meteorological officials lament that drought conditions across the region over the past couple of years mean that there just hasn't been enough rain to replenish aquifers as the usual rate. And while we have not seen or have not been able to quite definitively as yet quantify the impacts of this climate change, the evidence of significantly reduced precipitation could be everywhere or anywhere in the vicinity of 10 to 20%. In this regard, earlier this week, the director of the Barbados Meteorological Service, Mr. Sabu Best, was warning Barbadians that they should be prepared for a long drought period, given that, and I quote, "there is not going to be any rainfall that is going to be coming anytime soon," end quote. Best was quoted as saying that over the past couple of weeks, there has been, and I quote, "significant reduction in rainfall across the island, that the dry conditions, dry air, and abundance of sunshine is actually leading to a lot of drying out of the topsoils across the island, and a lot of areas are actually turning brown in fields and cane fields." Trinidad and Tobago is by no means exempt from this situation. The truth is that local water and wastewater sector is plagued not only with systemic deficiencies, but with dysfunctions that have been institutionalized over time. An aging 700-kilometer pipeline infrastructure is matched only by an almost rigor mortis approach to the acceptance of new ideas in the interim. The last estimate tells us that between 40 or 50% of water is lost somewhere between its production and the end user. The truth is that aging infrastructure aside, if we were able to capture that 40 to 50%, if proven to be true, and redistribute same through our network, there would be no need to increase water production in Trinidad and Tobago. I say that because the loss of 40 to 50% of water, which is the equivalent of 100 imperial million gallons of water, is split almost evenly between physical and commercial leakages. The loss is even further quantified in the vicinity of $287 million annually. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not lunch money. This is $287 million that could be used to upgrade and replace the aging infrastructure without recourse to additional government intervention and to reduce WASA's resilience or reliance on state subventions for its existence. But quite apart from the aging infrastructure, there are other factors which contribute to the enormous water loss and, by extension, non-revenue water. While there are many who will argue quite vehemently that lack of coordination between this country's own Ministry of Works and Transport, who has the responsibility of maintaining the country's main roads, and WASA, who lays the pipe, is another contributor to the citizens' inability to get a regular supply. I'll smile for that one, right? Not unlike other countries in the region, but equally unacceptable is the widespread existence of illegal water connections, which result in persons, and very importantly, commercial customers as well, receiving the full benefit of water supply, but reneging on their responsibility to pay water utility provider. This is especially scandalous when water rates in Trinidad and Tobago are the lowest in the entire region. According to the data provided via International Benchmarking Network, Database 2022, Trinidad and Tobago's water rate of, 31 US cents cubic meter per cubic meter is the lowest in the region. The research presents a more troubling picture. Data from the Inter-American Development Bank 2021 Caribbean Water Study indicate that in 2019, WASA's average monthly residential water bill for 15 cubic meter of water is $4.42 US cents, was the lowest among Caribbean countries, some 81% lower than the average in the region of US $23.87. So therefore, very often when I hear our perennial complainers ask the question, where the oil money gone? I am tempted to jump on the next soapbox and recite these figures, because the subsidization of water for the people of Trinidad and Tobago by successive governments has come to be viewed by many, as not just a privilege to be managed and to manage responsibly, but an inalienable right to be defended at all cost. This situation is compounded by the fact that the average daily consumption of water per capita in Trinidad and Tobago currently stands at 366 liters per day, which is more than twice of that consumed by our friends in Jamaica. Approximately 4 times more than the good citizens of Bahamas, and 5 times more than the paying consumers in Antigua. Added to that is a situation where most domestic customers in Trinidad and Tobago are not metered as their neighbors in Barbados, for example. This absence of a pay for what you use mechanism is a serious deterrent to persons exercising any true level of responsibility for the amount of water consumed daily, particularly in their attention and behavior to leaking taps, showers, storage tanks and toilets, and their management of swimming pools. The presence of metered connections for both domestic and commercial or industrial use would contribute significantly to behavior modification with respect to water use and water loss. The understanding that irresponsible water use and consequent water loss hits hard on the pockets of citizens should be reason enough to change long-held cultural habits. When this is extrapolated into commercial and industrial sectors, the magnitude of the problem becomes even more evident. The evidence collated thus far seems to point agonizingly to the disproportionate use and loss of non-revenue waters in these sectors, much more so than it is in the domestic sector. Should the anecdotal data and preliminary research prove to be correct, ladies and gentlemen, an anomaly will have to be corrected as part of the overall transformation of water in Trinidad and Tobago. Certainly, equity and justice demand that those who use more and profit greatly should be able to shoulder the burden of delivery. But of course, metering is a costly venture, and with limited financial resources, it will be better to start at the industrial and commercial levels, improve the levels of service at the domestic level, improve the revenue circumstances at the utility company to fund domestic metering from improved revenue and internal capex. Ladies and gentlemen, I use these points of comparison to demonstrate the gravity of the situation that we are confronted in and with locally, and the extent to which water loss and non-revenue water contribute to the unsustainability of the authority in its present configuration. What is clear to us is that it can no longer be business as usual. The Caribbean Water Loss Conference being held today in Trinidad and Tobago for the first time is a signal moment for us as it speaks to the resurgence of our local water authority, the Water and Sewerage Authority, and certainly to the increasing importance of Trinidad and Tobago as one of the major contributors to water and the wastewater sector. Trinidad and Tobago's ability to host this conference demonstrates to all who were not previously convinced that the transformation of WASA into an agile, data-driven, responsive, and customer-centric entity is well underway. I know I am preaching to the choir here when I say that the management of our utilities calls for a prudent intervention. It is precisely for this reason that the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago has embarked on the transformation not merely of the authority, but to deliver a transformation to the sector from an overarching and overall perspective. And to this end, the government has graciously partnered with the IDB and has only recently signed a loan in the sum of $315 million through the conditional credit line for investment projects and a US $80 million loan contract for the first individual loan operation for the National Water Sector Transformation Program. The IDB loan will be used principally to enhance the efficiency and the quality of our water supply. The specific objectives of the loan program are to improve the operational efficiency and the reliability of water supply services to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, to develop capacity and provide institutional strengthening to the Ministry of Public Utilities and the Water and Sewerage Authority. Without a proper policy in place, ladies and gentlemen, to guide this transformation, all these efforts are likely to yield minimal results. It is for this reason I am elated that tomorrow we can launch the government's updated, revised National Integrated Water Resources Management Policy as the guiding instrument for this transformation. The goal of this policy is to bring all water-related efforts together and to offer a clear vision for the efficient management of the country's water resources in a sustainable and an
50 by 20, 50 by 25.
This is Kyron Pollard. When you play, do it the legal way. Don't bet on illegal gaming.
There are more ways to win big and multiply your money with the new Lotto Plus multiplier. When you play your regular Lotto Plus bet, add the multiplier for only $5 more and get a chance to multiply your non-jackpot prizes. 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times, or even 20 times. You can win up to $1 million. Plus now win a quick pick when you match 2 numbers and the Powerball. Win even bigger prizes with the new Lotto Plus multiplier today. Players must be 18 years and over. Please play responsibly.
Welcome to this morning's Playway Pick 2 and Pick 4 draw, supervised by independent auditors KPMG and presided over by the National Lotteries Control Board. Good luck, everyone.
Good morning. Welcome to the NLCB's Playway, Pick 2 and Pick 4 draw for Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023. First we'll draw this morning's Playway number. And the winning number is 20, the lucky mark dog. That number again, 20, the lucky mark dog. Our Mega Mix machine is loaded with a Mega Bonus Ball in each chamber. Should a Mega Bonus Ball call, you win $40 for every dollar wagered. Payouts on the Mega Ball, Mega Ultra Ball and the Mega Extreme Ball are unchanged. Remember, Mega options cost an additional $1, and you can play 1, 2, or all 3 for more chances to win. And now for Mega Mix selection.
I thank you for the courtesy of your attention, and I wish this conference a success and take absolute delight in now declaring open this first Caribbean Water Loss Conference 2023. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the Honorable Minister Marvin Gonzalez, Minister of Public Utilities. And honestly, Minister, I want to commend you on addressing the issues faced on today. And we look forward to what is going to happen here over the next 2 days. Like you said, water is life. However, this conference would not have been made possible without some of our partners. So we acknowledge the following for their support. Our diamond sponsor, the Water and Sewerage Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, WASA. Our ruby sponsor, the Inter-American Development Bank. Gold sponsors, Camstrop Water Metering LLC, Maya Water, Control Technologies, DeSalcott, and BPTT. We also take time to acknowledge our silver sponsor, Vola Water Technologies and Solutions. Our bronze sponsors, 7 Seas Water Group and Crowder Consulting, and our technology sponsor and partner, B-Mobile Business. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our sponsors. We will now proceed to a brief ribbon-cutting ceremony to officially open the conference exhibition hall, following which we have an exciting panel discussion lined up for you. I ask that you remain seated while we ask the following conference partners who will be directed by our ushers to cut the ribbon: Minister Marvin Gonzalez, Minister of Public Utilities; Mr. Ravindra Nanga, Chairman of the Water and Sewerage Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, WASA; Ms. Nicolette Duke, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Utilities; Mr. Bambos Charalambus, Senior Member of the International Water Association and Member of the IWA Strategic Council; and Mr. Marlon Daniels, President of the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association. We now direct your attention to the screens for those in the room, and for those of you all at home, we'll now get to actually see the ribbon cutting done by these individuals. Okay, we stand by for them to be all lined up as we get ready to officially open this Caribbean Regional Conference Water Loss 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, the ribbon has been cut. And we welcome the individuals and we welcome you to the Caribbean Regional Conference Water Loss 2023. Thank you so much to each and every one of the individuals. The stage is now set for our ministerial panel discussion, NRW, Combating Climate Change. I now invite to join me on stage the session chair, Sarah Jade Govaya, with the following panelists. Honorable Marvin Gonzalez, Minister of Public Utilities, Trinidad and Tobago. Honorable Alfred Sayers, Minister of Works and Utilities of the Bahamas. And Dr. the Honorable Romel Springer, Parliamentary Secretary of Transport, Works and Water Resources, Barbados. So we want to thank our honorable ministers as they get ready to join us, and we also get ready to set up the area for this particular discussion. And once again, we want to remind you throughout the day we have our coffee break station. Feel free to have refreshments, and also if you haven't connected as yet, please connect to our conference Wi-Fi. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to direct your attention to the stage. We want to welcome our panel to the stage right now. Minister Marvin Gonzalez, Minister of Public Utilities, to join us. The Honorable Alfred Sayers, Minister of Works and Utilities, the Bahamas. And Dr. the Honorable Romel Springer, Parliamentary Secretary of Transport, Works and Water Resources, Barbados. And also we welcome the person that will lead this panel discussion, Ms. Sarah Jade Govaya. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our panelists as we get ready for our first discussion for the conference. All right, so
1, 2, 3.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we are live today. My name is Sarah Jade Govayo, and it's truly a pleasure to be sitting here with these very esteemed gentlemen who have given up themselves to be interviewed by me today. And we're really talking today about the approach of non-revenue water reduction and how it can be used to combat climate change. And I'm joined by the Honorable Alfred Sayers, Minister of Works and Utilities and Member of Parliament in the government of the Bahamas, our Minister of Public Utilities, the Honorable Marvin Gonzalez, and Member of Parliament in the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And to my left is Dr. the Honorable Rommel Springer, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Transport, Works and Water Resources of the government of Barbados. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
So I think the Minister of Public Utilities today really set the context on climate change. And I just want to take a step back for the room to appreciate what is the global messaging around climate change. And we hear a lot of talk about this 1.5 to 3 degrees Celsius expected global increase in temperatures. And for many of us, that does not resonate, including water practitioners. And really what this means for us is that half of us in Trinidad and Tobago, half of us in this Caribbean region, half of us in the world are expected to experience water scarcity. That is in effect what it means. So the climate crisis is a water crisis. And our water resources of our Caribbean countries, particularly the small island developing states, are expected to experience various threats. And while this may seem like doom and gloom, as Minister Young said this morning, this is really the nexus for us to begin to think about water from a national perspective. The nexus between water and other economic sectors, energy, tourism, industry. So the overarching question that we hope to answer over the next 30 minutes is, can reducing water losses climate-proof our Caribbean water utilities, and most importantly, our Caribbean people against what is to come, or arguably what is here already? And I want to start with you, Minister Gonzalez. You are an attorney, and ladies and gentlemen, none of these gentlemen are engineers or experts. And I think what they are translators. So they can translate the very tough, hard, rough technical language we use so that we can all understand. So I want to start with you, Minister, as an attorney, as a non-water sector expert. In your own words, what is non-revenue water reduction to you?
Well, non-revenue water, from my understanding, is that volume of water that is produced by a water utility company that does not reach its intended beneficiaries or customers. So in the context of WASA, it is estimated that WASA produces approximately 240 imperial million gallons of water on a daily basis. And it is estimated also that 40% of that water does not reach the customers or is unaccounted for, which equates to 100 million gallons of water that cannot be accounted for. So therefore, it should bother the minds of citizens that whilst we would have entered into preceding years into expensive desalination contracts, with one company, we are contracted to purchase 40 imperial million gallons of water per day, and the next desal company, about 6 million gallons of water per day. So there's a total of 46 million gallons of desal water. But based on your last water balance, you are estimating to have been losing over 100 million gallons of water per day. And this is costing the people of Trinidad and Tobago from a desalination water purchase perspective, approximately $700 million per year. And the question, therefore, is that should we now take limited financial resources and address your non-revenue water, your 100 million gallons of water that is not reaching the various levels of customers, and try and capture at least 50% of that and have it redistributed to communities that are unserved or underserved? And that is the question. So, basic response, non-revenue water is that volume of water that is produced by a utility provider that is not reaching the customers.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Minister. And you really put a dollar value to that. And in simple terms, it is revenue, as you have said, that is being lost by the water utility that can be invested into other things. And I want to switch the conversation to Minister Sayers. And the Bahamas has this experience, a very unfortunate experience, of having suffered tremendous loss of life and damage from the passage of Hurricane Dorian. And we are expected to see events just like that, intense and what seems to be endless. And Minister Sayers, can you share with us whether you see a role for NRW reduction in building the resilience of water utilities to these types of events?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The issue of climate change for the Bahamas is not an academic exercise. In 2019, over the course of 3 days, September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we had a direct hit by a Category 4 Hurricane Dorian. After the passage of Hurricane Dorian, we, based on the IDB estimate, we suffered $3.4 billion losses. We lost hundreds of persons. What is not calculated is the psychic harm on the population. Specific to water, the Bahamas, unlike Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, and the Eastern Caribbean, where you have an abundance of rivers and lakes, the Bahamas is very flat. The highest point is about 206 feet or 60 meters high. The aquifer in the Bahamas is very thin. So when you have coming over the land tidal surge, you have a pollution of the aquifer. Therefore, it has a direct bearing on the availability of potable groundwater. When you that is compounded by the fact that from the 1990s, the Bahamas has been challenged. Though a small population of 400,000, the Bahamas each year is host to over 7 million people as tourists who need potable water. So from the late 90s, the Bahamas has been increasingly relying on desalinated water. Currently, 95% of the population, which is based in New Providence, 70% of the population, 95% of the water is desalinated. So we see now the water becomes increasingly more expensive. For the consumption of desalinated water, the Bahamas, in Nassau, we pay about $3 million US on a monthly basis for desalinated water. And the bulk of the consumption is desalinated water. We have 30 desalination plants around the archipelago stretching 100,000 square miles. And extremely expensive, relying on diesel to run the desalination plants. So there have been a number of measures we have taken, which I will share in the course of the discussion.
And the Bahamas was one of the very first countries in the Caribbean to address non-revenue water reduction. So we'll definitely touch on some of your lessons learned. But I want to bring you in, Dr. Springer, because Prime Minister Motley has been our Caribbean champion for climate justice. And she has really brought home the case of putting your money where your mouth is for SIDS and developing economies. And I want to ask you, Dr. Springer, how has this call to act and focus on building resilience in Barbados, how has that translated down to the water sector? What has the water sector been doing to build their resilience?
Well, first let me speak to non-revenue water in Barbados and some of the challenges that we face daily. We've been losing up to 40% of our water to commercial loss and to physical loss. Of that 35% is physical loss. We've been more or less using a variety of approaches to combat this loss. We've looked at metering, increased metering. We have also looked at improving some of our monitoring systems. That's on the commercial side. We have metered standpipes, we have metered fire trucks, we have metered any source of water, whether it be private or, well, public water source. We have tried to meter to combat water loss. We are even encouraging private water extractors to meter their systems. Now, as it relates to funding and climate change, we as a country, and I'm glad that Barbados was used as the example where climate change has been especially impactful. We are right now listed as the 5th most water scarce country in the world. 5th. And we have been trying to, as much as possible, maintain the standards that we've been accustomed to, despite the reduction in rainfall. We've had droughts for the past 20 years. For the most part, Barbados has been under a drought condition. In fact, we've had drought conditions 2021, 2022, and 2023 is looking like we are about to be facing another drought. Now, as it relates to funding, there's no shortage of funding for matters or issues that result from climate change. Lending partners are willing to fund for such things, but as it relates to non-revenue water, that is where we are seeing the challenge. And that's why it is important that we make the link between energy and water. Because until such time as it is realized that when we lose water to ground, when water is lost back into the ground, as in our case, most of our water is extracted from the ground, it requires additional energy to pump to satisfy our customers, which results in greater emissions and destruction of the emission of greenhouse gases. So there is a link, and that is why Barbados has been looking at renewable energy. We have been looking at a strategic main replacement program where we are strategically replacing all of our aged infrastructure. Now, mind you, many of the pipes, the mains in Barbados, are between 50 and 150 years old. And many are rupturing on a daily basis. In fact, we are having, on average, 77 of our mains being ruptured or burst daily, and those are our 3 to 4 inch mains. And this is a direct result of the age and the crumbling of our infrastructure that was laid down when Barbados was still a part of the British Empire. So money spent for the past couple of years, we have spent that money in more or less modernizing our infrastructure. And mind you, it costs at least $1 million per kilometer to change age mains in Barbados. And we've been doing that for the past 3 or 4 years. We have a problem mainly in the north of the island, where we are having challenges with water supply as well as discolored water, and that is where our focus has been. But as far as non-revenue water is concerned, we have been trying multiple approaches to ensure that we can provide our customers with water. I will go through some of them as we go further into the discussion.
And Dr. Springer, again, ladies and gentlemen, is not an engineer, but his explanation is just a testament to how deep you have to get when you're dealing with water issues. And Minister Gonzalez, I have to ask you this question because as Dr. Springer spoke about this drought early warning, we are at the tail end of our dry season. And during our dry season, WASA often circulates these messages to the population around saving water and just bringing general awareness to wastage. And this is not often well received by the public. And really, that I believe that is because of the visibility of the many leaks across the country. What do you want to say to the population around this narrative of WASA's wastage versus theirs?
I want to assure the people of Trinidad and Tobago that WASA, over the last 2 years, has been taking on aggressively the challenge of leaks on our aging infrastructure. And of course, there's also another challenge in WASA fixing leaks and leaving our roads in a deplorable condition. That is also being tackled aggressively. But 2 years ago, when I became minister, I was told that the leak backlog in WASA was somewhere in the region of 5,000. That is backlog. And the definition of backlog in the world of WASA means that it's a leak that has been reported over 30 days. So if the leak has been reported under 30 days, it is not categorized as a leak backlog. And then you had situations of leaks being reported for months, 3 months, almost a year, that has not been repaired. So those would have fall within that 5,000 category. And we decided to form a task force led by the Ministry of Public Utilities to tackle that, because if the utility company is not demonstrating a level of seriousness in managing its non-revenue water, then it will not have the moral authority to convince a very jaded population to engage in practices themselves to conserve water. And over the last 2 years, because of this aggressive strategy to reduce the leak backlog, we've been able to reduce it to 0. And therefore, the leaks that are currently on the system would have been leaks that have been reported within 30 days. We expect to remove that backlog somewhere in the region of 800, I'm advised, by the end of this month, thereby positioning the utility company to be able to respond to every report of leaks within a 24 to 48-hour period. Next month, we're also going to be relaunching our leak repair app, where customers and citizens will now be able to report leaks on that app, identifying the GPS location of the leak, uploading a video or a photograph of the leak, the address and what have you. And with the establishment of a live monitoring system or center, command center, Once that report enters into the system, the necessary procedures would now be triggered to allow leak repair crew to respond within a 24 to 48 hour period. Last week we commissioned a number of mini excavators that would now be used in the war against leak. I would define it as a war against leak. Because when I came in, I never imagined that leaks was really contributing to so much water being lost in your system. And I witnessed one leak that I reported as a minister, and it took WASA almost a month to respond to it. So I could not have imagined what the ordinary citizen reporting a leak, what they were experiencing. But I monitored that leak, and every day I would pass, and I would see thousands of gallons of water flowing down a drain. You can just imagine what 5,000 leaks would have been doing to your system, losing millions and millions of gallons of water. And you have so many communities reporting not having water, and the consumers and the citizens saying, but we don't have water, but you are seeing water flowing down the drain, being wasted. So we are at a very good stage now. We have removed the 5,000 backlog. We are tackling the current 700 leaks on the system, and we expect to complete that by the end of the month. And with the launch of the Leak Repair app, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago will now see a more responsive utility company being able to respond to every report of leaks within a period of 24 to 48 hours with the use of technology.
Right. And I think that's the message, that citizens still have a role to play in holding WASA accountable to that, and the app should make that process easier.
But there's another very important part to this whole thing. Citizens themselves have to see their role as being important, because whilst, yes, we must agitate that WASA is not responding to leaks in a timely manner, what about the leaks that occur on our private dwelling homes, leaks in our water tanks, our toilet facilities? In my constituency, for example, I would have witnessed on several occasions where customers who live on high elevations not getting water because the customers to the lower points. They're not repairing their overflowing tanks, they're leaking toilet systems and what have you. And because their neighbors lower down the road not doing the responsible thing, it is affecting their neighbors on the higher end who cannot get the water because the consumers themselves are not doing what they're supposed to do. So it's a collective responsibility.
I like that. And I want to bring back the case of the government of the Bahamas and addressing non-revenue water. And Minister says, as a decision maker, as a representative of the people, what really for you makes non-revenue water reduction attractive? Why is it a good spend for taxpayers and citizens?
Well, it is a necessity, because given the existential threat that the Bahamas and this region faces, just to give an example, in 2012, the Bahamas consume about 17.5 imperial gallons per day. Of that amount, 7.6 million imperial gallons was non-revenue water. It never reached the consumer. In that same year, the government undertook to make a radical intervention. In fact, I would say, in the words of Martin Carter, we don't sleep to dream, but we dream to change the world. And in that year, the government engaged Maya Bahamas in an $83 million contract funded by the Inter-American Development Bank to address and reduce this issue of non-revenue water. There is no question that the Bahamian experience is one of the most successful in this region, because the 6.8 million imperial gallons which was being lost Within 7 years, that was reduced to 2.5 million imperial gallons, and now up to last year, it was down to 2 million imperial gallons. And of course, it has been the subject of many international awards, and we are very proud, but we're not complacent. We recognize that we must extend this beyond New Providence into our family islands, and we have just signed another contract with Maya, Bahamas, to expand to the rest of the country. In addition to that, in partnership with UNICEF and Waterkeepers, at some of our desalination plant in Abaco, we have established solar facilities to power the pumps of the water, the desalination infrastructure. As Dr. Springer said, much of our infrastructure is really a legacy of the colonial period, and we're moving for the installation of PVC pipes rather than the old cast iron pipes where you had a lot of leaking. So we have determined, and we have ordered from the manufacturer, steel-coated storage tanks so that there can be better resilience in the storage facility to avoid the leaking. So these are some of the measures that the Water and Sewage Corporation, of which I'm very proud, have been very aggressive in being creative, innovative. I also went to Japan with Mr. Deal, and we're looking at innovative measures throughout the world, and one of which is OTEC, using the deep ocean water to generate electricity as well as for desalination. And in the Bahamas, one of the largest hotels, Bahama, they're using the deep seawater, 600 feet, and to cool the facility that is running that cold water through the chillers. So all of the air conditioning at Bahama is generated by deep sea ocean water. So clearly we have to be much more innovative and utilize the resources, renewable resources we have, the deep ocean, the sun, and also the wave to generate electricity, because the way we're operating now is not sustainable.
Yeah. And thank you for introducing, the role of the private sector, because I think that's a key question in this entire discussion. What is the role of the private sector in helping countries to address this major development problem? And I want to pose my final question to you, Dr. Springer. As you mentioned, your country, Barbados, is water scarce. And there's a lot of, most of the policy decisions that you make are around ensuring that citizens have a reliable supply of water. Do you think there's a role, or what benefit is there in reducing water losses, in addressing this issue of giving customers a continuous water supply?
We've always taken the view that there should be a whole nation approach to water loss. And there's a role, as you alluded to earlier, for public-private partnerships. Certainly the private sector has the resources that at times are not available to government. And even if private sector were to get involved in a more direct way, that gives the government more fiscal space to perhaps work on other aspects of the supply that requires work. And I just want to use this opportunity to share a little bit more about the situation in Barbados, where we have been struggling with climate change. We've been engaging with the private sector to ensure that everyone is on board, that customers understand the importance of conservation. customers understand the importance of resilience within a climate change context. And interestingly enough, as flat as Barbados is, we have some of the very same challenges that were just expressed in terms of leakage at lower elevations impacting customers at higher elevations, and persons not being responsible enough to ensure that they either report these leaks or that they do what is necessary by turning off the pipes and so on to ensure that there's enough pressure within the system so their neighbors in the high elevations can also have access to water. So we've been aggressively encouraging persons to, do what is neighborly and what is right in terms of water conservation. We have done a green initiative where areas that are water scarce, we have distributed water tanks, personal water tanks, some for rainwater harvesting, some for potable water, because that is it's not new to Barbados in terms of having your personal water tank, but it's not as widespread in Barbados as it is in, let's say, Trinidad, for example. In fact, what I can tell you is that Barbadians for many years would have shunned away from the use of water tanks. But now we are seeing the importance of these tanks as we are facing climate change and, by extension, the likelihood of water outages. And these are just things that we are trying to change the culture of how we look and how we treat to water. Because for some reason, the water crisis is not seen as yet as a crisis. Yeah. We have not been able to somehow reach the man in the street as it relates to where we are with water, because they see the rain falling every so often. When they turn the taps on, there's water. When they look, in your case, the rivers, they see water. We don't have any rivers. Mm-hmm. So we don't have that issue. But people are seeing water around them. When they look in the oceans, they see water. So to convince persons that there's a water crisis is a challenge for us. But we have been trained, because the fact remains that a lot of money, a lot of capital has to be invested to ensure that water can be supplied to our customer base. And some reason we have not been able to tell the story of water. Water is has a very interesting story. The production of water, to extract water from the earth, to purify that water and make that water available for you to drink. People can only see as far as the taps. In fact, I just recently, I saw on social media, we were discussing water loss in Barbados, and persons were debating how can water be lost if it's going back into the ground. You got it from the ground, so how can you lose it if it's going back into the ground? It seems to me people do not understand the effort that's required to extract that water and to make that water available for you to drink. But all in all, we have to bring everybody in. We have to bring in the private sector. We have to bring in our people, our customers, government. Everyone has to work together as a whole nation approach to ensure that it is a steady water supply for all.
And thank you. As well. Thank you for that, Dr. Springer. I think it was the ideal closing message for us that we need a all of country, whole of government, private sector approach to addressing non-revenue water. So ladies and gentlemen, please thank our panelists, our ministers for taking their time.
Thank you.
And for really giving us an appreciation of their perspectives as representatives of the people on where this issue of water loss reduction can take us. So thank you. Thank you. You too.
Thank you, Honorable Ministers, and thank you, Ms. Govaya. I know she acknowledged the panel, and you all gave the panel a round of applause, but please get a round of applause for our water expert, Ms. Sarah J. Govaya. It is now time for our coffee break. We will resume at 11:30. Do have a walk around, visit the various booths, introduce yourselves to a few colleagues within the industry, and make the most of this networking session. When we come back around, we get ready for a panel discussion, what's up, past, present, and future. We'll have lunch, and then we'll go into breakout sessions. So at this point in time, we have our coffee break. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And for your entertainment pleasure during this coffee break, we have Emmanuel Joseph.
We serve about 300 residents.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for allowing me to perform for you. It's been a great pleasure, and I wish you a very prosperous conference. Thank you so much.